Hey programmers. Okay, so I kind of went out of order in this series and jumped to sequences before doing presets first. I did this because there's some new options in MA3 presets that have to do with how they're stored in part queues, so I wanted to make sure that you saw some examples of those first. And we'll get to those options, but first, let's look at the preset pools. There are the ones that we remember, but now there are 5 all pools. You can put an input filter on any all pool so that you can customize it as you like. Having these 5 options is to give you more flexibility in organizing. Like maybe I want to dedicate one all pool to just phasers. There's even a place where we can change their names to make organization even better. For any pool you open, clicking MA gets you the preset pool settings window. There's a lot of Windows basics here that we already know, and here's that name option that I mentioned we could use with our all pools. If you want to change things like the bar at the top of each of your presets that lets you know that the preset is available to all or some or none of your current fixture selections, you can. I'd probably leave these alone because I'm so used to these colors, but I guess if I wanted to mess with someone, then reversing these colors would be a great way to do that.
The input filter is where we filter features, attributes, and even worlds to be stored.
Here's the default preset mode, whether it's universal, global, or selective. The parts section on the right is why I wanted to wait on sharing this preset tutorial until after we had looked at parts in our programmer and sequences. These part options here have to do with what programmer part number the presets in this pool will be automatically dropped into and stored as part queues in your sequences. Static parts is for single-step presets, basically any preset that isn't a phaser. If the default here is selected, then all presets get dropped into part 0. The idea here is that this is an organizational tool. Say you always want your position presets to go into part 2. We can change that here in the position pool. Maybe you want your color presets in part 3. Okay, we change that in the color pool, and so on. This isn't required, it's just an option you can use if you like. And like I said before, you don't have to use part queues, but if you like them and you want to force different types of attributes into certain parts, this is a great way to do it. Now, my one complaint about this is that the default is specific to part 0. That means that even if you create a different part number in the programmer parts window and go into that part, as soon as you add that preset, it will ignore the part you were in and drop it in part 0. I think I'd prefer an additional option in the pool settings where you could say that you want the preset to drop into the currently selected part in your programmer. After that, we could still have an option for 0 or any other number that we like. Now, you can change preset parts of individual presets, but this seems a little clunky to me in a normal workflow. Alternatively, we can put a preset in our programmer and type store qx part y, and it will overwrite this. But this is also not perfect because I need to make sure that when storing that I'm only storing this preset value. And that might mean making sure that only this preset is active or using store filters. I mean, again, it's extra work, and when you're programming a tour, ain't nobody got time for that. So that's why I'm hoping this gets updated in future versions. Okay, enough ranting from me. The dynamic part from and to have to do with when multi-step phasers are part of a preset. Same idea as far as what part number to start with, but you get the added to option. Say you're putting multiple position phasers into a single queue. Having this higher second number in the to option allows these phasers to be separated into their own parts instead of all going into a single phaser part. Creating a new preset still works by looking at the values in your programmer and what preset options you go with in the store options pop-up. I've got some color info here. I could just store this into the color pool, or if I hold store, I can change my preset options first in the store pop-up. Super familiar for all of us MA2 people, right? I've got my embedded option if my new preset wants to reference other presets. I can toggle off the input filter so that I can add attribute types that are normally filtered out of whatever pool I'm storing to. I can choose to keep activation or not after I store. And then of course, here's our modes: selective, global, universal, or the default mode of the pool. And if you have timing in your fixture sheet when storing the preset, that'll be saved as well. The preset we just made is considered in MA3 to be a single-step preset. A multi-step preset would essentially be a phaser. There's also magic presets and presets with recipes, and we'll get into those in the next couple of videos. Once you've built your presets, sometimes you've got to edit them. You can still open them in the fixture sheet just like MA2 and make changes by pressing the edit key and tapping the preset, or here on PC, I'm just right-clicking on it. Once it's in, we can change what we need, and when we're ready to save, just hit update. There's another type of editing of the preset. If we swipe on the preset and pick Edit Option, then in the new window, you'll recognize a lot of these options as stuff we saw earlier in the pool options, but here, they're specific to this preset only. Remember earlier when I said that you could override the part numbers for individual presets so that it doesn't have to follow the rest of the pool? Well, here's where you can do that. You can also set a different input filter for this individual preset. No surprise, here's a place where you can set an appearance or scribble for this guy. Underneath is the recipes section where we can add a recipe to this preset and also cook it. This is a new thing in MA3 and I want to spend more time on recipes, so we're going to cover this in its own video. For now, I do want you to take a look at the options at the bottom. The edit button is the same as hitting the edit key and touching the preset. It loads the values into our fixture sheet so that we can edit them. List references is handy. The first tab can tell you where the preset is used in your show file, which cues it's stored in, and which presets it might be referenced in. If this preset itself was an embedded preset, then we'd be able to see which presets it referenced in the Depends On tab. Recast preset is also something new. If you add or remove an attribute to a preset that was already used in cues, you can choose to recast that new attribute and update it to all of the cues that reference that preset by hitting Recast Preset. The popular example of how to use this is if you were cloning to fixtures that have more parameters than our source fixtures, like going from an RGB LED to an RGBW or RGBA. You could add in the additional channels to your presets, then use Recast, and all of your cues would be updated. This is going to be handy as long as you understand it. Because it's designed to update your cues, it can overwrite other data. In fact, in this version of software, if you add a channel to your preset and recast it, it will recast the new data to your cues even if those attributes already had a different preset reference in the cue. Here's an example. I've got a cue where my lights are downstage center in a gobo and in a tight zoom. 3 different presets. Now, let's say in this gobo preset, I want to store a wide zoom value, which I can if I turn off the input filter. So that stores, and next time I grab those lights and touch this gobo, they're going to go wide, sure. But right now, it hasn't changed my existing cues. If I recast this preset now, my cue is going to be updated with the new zoom information, even though I already had been using my narrow zoom preset in this cue, and this is the expected functionality in version 1.4. As always, I don't know if this will change in future versions of the software, but I think it might be nice if we had some options when recasting to choose whether or not we want the recast to overwrite existing data already stored in the cues, or only to attributes not yet touched in our cues, or maybe only to attributes with hard values. You know, I like options. I want to add on to this next week and talk about magic presets. See you then.